Welcome back, everybody, to the Soul Ecosystem Podcast, where we talk soul contracts, reincarnation, past lives, and all things spirituality. I have a very special guest with us today that I would love to introduce to you. She is a fellow intuitive and specifically works with the soul journey. I am so excited to have her here, especially when I give you guys a little backstory about the soul contract I did for her. And her history as a soul is all very, very interesting. So, Serene, if you would like to start us off, can you give us a little idea of what it is that you do?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Serene. And what I do is the work I do is mainly focused on the soul journey, because when I think of our lifetime on earth, I see it as a journey. And well, because I understand that we have two types of soul journey. One is called like the eternal soul journey. That is when our soul essence actually like reincarnates over and over and over and again. That's like what I call the eternal soul journey. But for my work right now, I'm focusing on like our current soul journey, like just the journey of our current incarnation in this lifetime. So when I talk of when I say soul journey, I see it as it's a combination of our soul purpose, our soul mission, our soul growth and development, as well as our soul's mastery. And also, like, these are the three main pillars. And then there's also a part where I include as the soul nurturing, because when we incarnate into this lifetime, we all have a purpose and a mission, and then it will actually grow. Like from day one on earth, we have a purpose and a mission when we were like a 1 year old, like a 1 day old baby. And as we develop, as our soul and human grow, our purpose and mission will actually develop along with us. Because like at 1 day old, we cannot have a purpose of a 30 years old.
Right.
So it's like, yeah. So probably the essence of the main mission will be somewhat the same, but the actual work that you do on a daily basis, it will actually evolve as you grow. So that's like the soul growth part. And then there will be like the soul mastery part. Soul mastery is when you are mastering the lessons that you came here to learn, you're mastering the skills that you came here to develop. So it's like you have the purpose and mission, and then you grow, and then you eventually master. And it's actually a cycle where you go back to your purpose and mission again, because right now, like after you have mastered the certain set of skills you need at this like a checkpoint, a milestone, your purpose and mission will move forward again. So there's sometimes we will feel like, why is the goalpost always moving forward and forward and forward? Like we just can't reach there, because life is not meant to be a destination. It is a journey all along. And we might feel like our journey, like sometimes we are wondering, like, are we progressing or are we regressing? But in actual fact, we are not. Like, we will never regress. We will never ever regress. We will only always progress. And progress, I don't mean like in a linear form from left to right, like from back to forward, but it's always in a spiral going outwards. Upwards, upwards, upwards. Yes, we're always journeying in a spiral, always journeying upwards, and it's never ever linear. Although we might feel that way because, well, we are on earth and the energy is dense, so we feel as though we are regressing. But if you actually like think about it, like in hindsight, like you will, okay, let's say for example right now you feel like you need to start all over again, like start from scratch and all like that. But if you really think about it, you're never really starting from scratch, right? Because every time you decide to like, you want to like, okay, like rebirth yourself, and then, but when you come back into a new like a mission for this season, you are actually carrying with you all the experiences that you have experienced before. So you are never going back to like being like a newborn baby without any life experience at all. Mm-hmm. So it's always a journey.
Because you already have that knowledge within you.
Yes, yes. even though you might think that you did not learn your lesson the last time, but somehow there's always a little lesson that you have experienced, because it will never be like completely a zero experience.
Oh, wow.
And even though sometimes you'll be like, why am I like experiencing this again? Why am I learning the same lesson again? But if you really look at it, the lesson you're learning, okay, maybe it will be the same. Like, for example, if you go to college and then you are taking, I don't know, like finance 1, finance 2, finance 3, for example, like you might have, like over the course of like 3 or 4 years, you might have the same like finance class, but it's like 1, 2, 3. So even though the essence of it, the core of it is the same, but you are somehow always at a more advanced level every time you experience it. And you will always have a more like a foundational knowledge beforehand, and you're not like coming in like brand new.
That definitely explains why for soul contracts, I've noticed that like they're never set in stone, and some people can pick up additional lessons they want to learn, additional programs they want to clear as they're going through incarnation. And like I realize that when I'm like, oh, I know exactly what's playing out for this person right now, and then I go to look at their chart and it's not there. So it's kind of like you're incarnated with the like basic lessons that you want to learn, and like you could pick up and put away the things that you don't need or need as you go along. So that's very interesting that you said that. You kind of like reiterated that.
Sorry. Like for the soul contracts, yes, it is the journey. Like I would say soul contracts is like the curriculum that we sign up for. And then along the way, if you have extra lessons and all, it's like the, what's it called? Like the electives?
Additional or electives. We have electives here.
But the electives that we take, it will never be like for example, after you graduate, you will not be like completely lose the experience of the elective. You still have that knowledge, and it somehow will apply, because the elective that you chose will never be like completely detached from your main course.
That is so interesting. I've always wondered about that, because I'm like, I know some people, like some souls, like can end a reincarnation early because like they're like, I have too much trauma to like end this lesson, and then they're kind of like they end it, they reincarnate again. And I've always wondered if they have like this remembrance of it, of the lesson, or if they're kind of thrown into it blindly again, and there's like this hope that the soul can actually move on this time.
It depends, because it depends on the lesson that they're meant to learn, because some lessons is like a compulsory lesson that they will have to learn as a soul before they can like upgrade to the next level. And I believe that some of them, they'll be like, okay, it's something that they like, it's not mandatory for their soul's development, and then they might just like skip over that lesson and be like, okay, I don't really need that. So it really depends on the eternal soul journey, what kind of development your soul would need or would want to experience.
That makes so much sense. And that actually, as you were talking, it raised a question for me. Like I recently heard this theory, and I wasn't sure what to make of it, but this person said that not everything that is going on with you has a reason. Like there's some people go through something traumatic and they're like, why did this happen? Like, what was I meant to learn from here? And there was this theory that they were saying that there's not a reason for every pain that you experience. Like, it's not always because of something.
Yes. Like, that's why I've heard of that too. Like the saying, like, oh, everything happens for a reason is actually it can be very traumatizing.
Yes.
because you'll be wondering like what did I do wrong? And am I being punished and all like that? But well, some things happen for a reason, but some things just happens to be, well, you just probably hit the jackpot for some sort of possibility that can happen to you as human on earth. Because I'm sure when we incarnate, the council or something will say like, oh yeah, this is the so-called like the destiny that you will have, but along the way there will always be things that can happen because that maybe some technical error or something in the earth system that might cause you to experience something that is
by chance,
like not meant to be for you, but so happened you were just there at like probably like the wrong place at the wrong time kind of theory.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think that a lot of people often try to find either something wrong with themselves, or they try to find closure in a way of like finding who to blame for it, or like who's responsible and holding somebody responsible for what happened. And oftentimes maybe there's nothing that could have been done. Maybe it was just a fluke and you just have to surrender that happened and release it.
I would say probably not really surrender, but to accept, that was what you've experienced, because, well, our human minds love to make logic out of everything. We love to understand why everything happened. But most of the time, that is the cause of our struggles. Like, why? And then it is always easier to put the reason or the blame on someone or something rather than just accepting that, okay, like things just is as it is. That's why, like in my soul journey, my fourth pillar, I call it the soul nurturing. It's really to nurture our progress so that we have the purpose, we have the growth with the mastery. It's already a journey on its own. And then we have the nurturing part where we have to always like come back to ourselves and like nurture and like rejuvenate and recalibrate, and to just like, because if we don't nurture ourselves in a way of like accepting and progressing from our experiences, it's very, very hard for us to actually move forward onto the next phase. Because if we are attaching ourselves to our past, it's very, very hard for us to fully step into the next phase, like the future. So that's where nurturing happens. So in the work that I do, I always focus on helping people to help them on their journey, because I always see life as like a road, and then there are like speed bumps and crossroads. So we always come to the point where we have to make a decision, or we are always at the point where we have to enter a new transition phase and all like that. So my work is to guide the souls who are meant to work with me, to help them to more gracefully and more smoothly transition into the next phase, and to help them see themselves clearly on which path or which decision that they are aligned to take.
And you've definitely done that for me. I feel like there have been several instances where like I was in a crossroads and I was like, I knew that I couldn't stay where I was at, but I felt like I couldn't get out of it myself. Like I was kind of in a very stagnant energy. And you've definitely helped me clear away the noise and refocus on a path and kind of clear up that path for me. But I wanted to touch a little bit on why it is that I couldn't stop talking to you. Like once we had the soul contract, once we did a soul contract for you, I feel like we talked a little bit before that too. But when I took a look at your Akashic records, guys, this has never happened to me before. When I took a look into her Akashic records, she was in her Akashic records writing a book. And then when I realized what book it wasn't just any book. She was writing an Akashic records book. It wasn't clear what kind of book she was writing, but it was very clear that this soul, her soul, is very, very ancient, and she has done this incarnating many, many times. I believe I got a look at like one of your first incarnations on Earth, and you have done this many times. And I actually tried to tune into your guides, I think in that same reading, and I was like asking them if they have any guidance for you, and they were like, don't ask us. Don't ask us like for guidance. Like she knows better than us. We're just here to protect her and make sure she gets through this incarnation okay. They were kind of just there to support you. but not necessarily guide you. And up until that point, I have never heard of that even being a thing. I'm like, okay, this person is clearly filled with ancient wisdom that has to be like talked about. It has to be shared with the world. And that's one of the things about that the soul contracts talk about a lot. They talk about how important it is to share your knowledge instead of keeping it to yourself and feeling like, oh, like nobody could possibly want to hear me talk about incarnations and past lives for however many hours. But it's so important to do that because you never know how much it could help. Like we are all meant to create, to have a community and to have a connection to each other in order to help each other through life, because nobody gets out unscathed. Everybody suffers at least a little bit. So yeah. And then the more I talked to you, the more I realized that things that you think are common sense blow my mind. They absolutely are so full of wisdom. And I really think that the way you think needs to be put out there and shared with other people. So I really wanted to kind of blow you up and talk about your services and your work and the way that your mind works. So
the way my mind works.
The way your mind works, because it's definitely not common knowledge, and it's very wise. And that's why I wanted you to share a little energy reading into the next month, the energy that's coming out for the collective, because it's been a little difficult already in 2025.
Sure, and thanks for everything. So for 2025, I would say like the overall energy, I would say from January to July, it's really very action oriented. Not in the sense of like go, 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 go and like non-stop action, but it's about like when I first tuned into it, I saw two horses, the warm-blooded horse and the cold-blooded horse, which represents like the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine. So I see them like running together and they're working together. So it's like there will be a cycle of the masculine and then the feminine, and that happens from January to July, and then from August to December. That would be more of like a cool down phase where I see like little sprouts sprouting from the ground, and then you're putting a warm blanket over them and like creating like a little greenhouse effect for them. So it's like from August to December, that will be more like toning down and nurturing the growth that you have actually developed over the first half of the year. And then for January, we've all been through it. January, when I see January, is like a big ball of fire, or like a lot of fire. It is a lot of burning. Well, I mean, it could be literal burning, and it also could be like emotional burning, as well as like a spiritual burning, in terms of where we are shown the parts of us that has to be released and shed in order to step into our new era. Because when I see the year like 2024 and 2025, 24 feels like the end of a previous era, and 25 feels like it's like a whole new book that we are entering into. Like we have closed our previous book in 2024, and 25 is where we're beginning to writing a new book. So there's a lot of identity shifts, a lot of values and belief shifts as we cross over to 25, and hence January has been, it could be slow for some, or it could be very, very quick for some, but it's definitely the month where we are like in the washing machine, and then we're like being tossed around and like, okay, washing all the dirt and debris away, and here we are, we feel like squeaky clean again. So when I tune into February feels like a month of softness. It's very softness. It's very soft and tender. It's definitely a month for going, I wouldn't say going inwards in terms of like doing like shadow work or inner child work. It's more of coming into the soft and tender side of yourself, like your vulnerable self, and coming into your special place. Because I believe all of us, our human self as well as our soul self, we all have a special place within us that helps us feel safe. If you think about it, like growing up and like up to now, whenever you feel really, really overwhelmed, or when you're really terrified of something, like when you feel like the world is too much, we will somehow drift off into a place where we feel very comfortable and where we feel safe. Like inherently, we feel like, okay, like I can be safe over here. So that is the feeling of what your special place is like. But I'm sure like when we reach the adult phase of ourselves and we're fully grown up, we kind of feel like that special place might feel a bit blur and foggy, and you're not sure if it's still there, but you still have that connection to it. So the February is the month where you kind of like rekindle that connection, like re-establish that connection to your special place in yourself, the tender and soft place in yourself, where you can come back to it, and it's a place where you feel like I'm me again. And it's a place where you can feel more like you can gain more clarity about who you are, why you're here, and what are your true desires in life. Not the conditioned desires, but your true desires, because each of us has our own soulful desires that is different from everybody else. So February is definitely a month to nurture that connection with your special place. And then I tune into like a special message for everyone that's listening to help you all on on your journey moving forward from now. So I'm going to read it out in a poem, and then I will do the explanation after. Okay, so sit back, relax, and open your heart to this message. Sitting cross-legged in the opening of a cave, feeling the gentle sunshine warming your smiling face, stood up steadily, feeling a sense of coolness upon your back, because you have released your baggage that felt like a drag. You stepped out of the cave lighter than ever, and you found yourself in the middle of the vast ocean, floating on your back, unsure what to do next. The water around you begins to cleanse and purify your soul. I open the space beneath you and help you descend. You landed on the most comfortable bed in your heart's special place, suddenly feeling clear about all the blessings you have, and also aware of the future blessings that your soul truly wants to have. So that's the poem. And so I'm going to walk you through it. Is that when I tune into the message meant for you, I see you, like you as in all the listeners, I see you sitting at the opening of a cave, like the mouth of a cave. It was morning time in the middle of a green, soft forest. And it felt like you were there, like in solitude, to think of your past. Like you were there to like reflect on your past experiences and your journey up to now. And you have came to the conclusion that every baggage that you have brought with you is not meant to continue with you on your next journey. And so you smiled, and then you took off your backpacks and you left it on the floor. And at the time, I felt like my back was very, very cool. I felt the sensation of like, as though there's mint on your back, and it's very cool because it felt like you have been carrying that backpack with you for I don't know how long. And that the moment you actually take it off, you're like, as though the weight has been lifted off your shoulders, and then your body can actually breathe again. And then I saw you like feeling very relieved and very light, and then you were stepping out of the cave, and then you turn back and see like, oh, that was my past. And then you'd be like, okay, you feel like you have come to a full circle, like come to a closure with where you have been up to right now, and that now that you are actually fully ready to to embark on your new journey without your old baggage. So on you, you only had the clothes that represents your truest essence, and on you, you were only holding small things that truly represents the essences that is meant to come with you. But everything else that does not serve you on your next journey, you have come to closure and ready to leave it behind already. So as you were walking out of the cave, you were walking through the forest and you actually came to the ocean. So the water of the color of the water is very light blue, very bright, and the seabed, the sand is very, very light color. It's almost white, as though it feels like a very, very pure, clean, and very fresh water. And as you were stepping into it, you felt like you are supported, that you felt like it's safe to walk into the unknown. Because sometimes when we think of the ocean, we think of the water, you feel like it's the unknown, it's dangerous, you're not sure what's there. But for this water, you felt like somehow you just feel like you can walk into the middle of the ocean. You can just trust and go, and that you will somehow float. And so as you walk deeper and deeper and deeper, you begin to just lie down on your back and you're just floating on the ocean, and you are asking like, okay, I have surrendered, I have trust, I have released. What's next? And at that point, I saw you were just like floating about. So I felt the call to help you to kind of like realign your energy. And beneath you, I open like a little portal, like there's an opening beneath your body, and I help you to descend. Like you can like get pulled into that portal, like below you, and then you just got swallowed in, and you appeared on a bed. Like it felt like a 4-poster bed, like in a very comfortable room. And in that room, it felt like it represents your heart space, that special place where you always feel safe. And in that room, I see a lot of items that felt precious to you. It felt very, very precious. So I'm sure if you close your eyes and imagine it, it would be things that mean a lot to you. In that room is full of the blessings you already have. And it also shows you the blessings that you want to have in the future. And it doesn't come from a place of like societal conditioning of like what you should have in life. It comes from a place of what your soul really wants to have. And if you allow yourself to really enter that space, you'll be able to see very clearly, or at least begin to receive the signs and symbols and synchronicities to show you, to guide you on the path that you are supposed to walk on moving forward. Like the aligned path and the higher path. Okay, let me see my notes. So overall, it feels like you have or you will enter a space of solitude, like emotional solitude. And then you finally feel like it is time for closure. You feel that it is time to release the identity of your past that has been weighing you down or holding you back from following your soul whispers. And also that I actually see your journey. I see your soul journey. I see that you have come to a point where you are crossing into a new threshold. Like you came to a junction, and like there's a new season there's a new phase ahead of you. And you will be able to cross that if you allow yourself to detach from all the external identity that you have gathered and built from the past, especially the identities that you have built and relied on for your survival. So in order to thrive on your next season, you have to release the identities that were there to help you survive, but not thrive. So thank the identity. Every identity is crucial for you to be alive up to now. So thank the identity that has helped you survive, and tell her or him that he is able to be released from this experience, because right now you'll be able to step into a new identity that is more aligned with your true essence, that can actually help you thrive.
This reminds me, I forget who I heard talking about this, but they were talking about how the ego creates identities to defend yourself. So when people get like super defensive, or when people start clinging to this certain way about doing things, it's because they're trying to protect themselves from getting hurt. So it's like you're shedding multiple layers of the ego. And I want to like kind of give you some feedback. I feel this very, very strongly based on what has been going on for the last month, month before the year of the snake. I feel like we're coming into it shedding all of our past, shedding all of these skins, shedding all of our past, and we have to come into it kind of fresh and not identifying with things that kept us stuck in the same place that we've always been stuck, that we're used to being in. So I resonate with that so deeply. and I just wanted to clarify, when she says you, she means the collective. It's not just like a personal reading for me. It's the collective energy that's going on for all of us.
Yes. And let me see what else. Okay. So another thing is that in this message, there's a part where I mentioned that I open a space beneath you. So it's like, I felt like I help you to open a portal for you to go into it, so that you can fully close your past and really begin a new journey from a place of groundedness and alignment. And the thing is that when I say I open the portal, I don't mean when I open it and then you're definitely in it. It's really up to you whether are you willing to really step into the portal or not. So in the month of February is really about coming back to your heart space, coming back you're nurturing your tender side of yourself. And once you allow yourself to fully come to closure and release the baggage that's holding you back, the portal is ready for you to enter, so that you can proceed on your journey with a more cleansed self and coming back more and more to your true self.
Do you have any guidance on how we know when that baggage is released? Because I've been doing a little inner child work, and oftentimes it's like you mentioned in the beginning, you're like, why do I keep having to relive the same lessons? Oftentimes, even though I'm trying to release certain things that happened in the past, it keeps it's like muscle memory. It keeps kind of floating back up the memories of what happened. So how do you know when you've released the baggage?
Good question. So when you have released the baggage, if you try to repeat your actions that you usually come back to, like the muscle memory actions, you will feel a block over there. You will feel do I really want to do this? You actually begin to question your actions. Back then, usually you have all these response out. It's always in autopilot response. But once you truly release, it doesn't become autopilot anymore. It feels familiar. You go I want to do it again. I want to make myself suffer and feel down again. But then there'll be a voice in you that go do I really want to? Because it doesn't feel as fulfilling as before.
Wow.
Yes, because it's when you have a favorite snack that you know that you should not eat too much of, but when you're in that very maybe anxious phase or depressed even, you be you go back to your ice cream or something like that, and then you eat. And then when you feel but when you release your baggage, and then when you feel you need to eat the ice cream again, as you lift the spoon and eat, you're it doesn't give you that sense of like fulfillment or that sense of contentment that you used to have. It just feels like, do I really want to eat this? Should I be eating this? It doesn't give you the sense of completion at that point. And that is when you know that you have begun to shed your old baggage. And then that is a great time for you to like, I would say like interrupt your neural pathway.
Your thinking.
Yes, and to create a new go-to. To create a new go-to. Because the old way does not serve you anymore. So it's time for us to put something new in place. Because we are, because like humans, we are creature of habits. It's very hard to like let go of something and then like not doing anything about it. Like there will be a void in us, like, oh, what should I fill that space with? So instead of trying to fill it up with something that you would do in the past, try filling it up with something that you want to do in the future. Like, what would your future self thank you for doing right now, instead of doing something that you know your future self will regret?
So can you give us an example? Let's say those past stories and those limiting beliefs and the muscle memory that we have from these past traumas, they're familiar to us. They feel safe to us because it's all we know. What can we replace those memories with when we've kind of start sensing that we're falling back into that same repetitive thought process again?
I would say to lean into the you from 5 years later, or maybe 3 years later. Right? Yes. Like when you feel like you're falling back because we don't like the unknown, we don't like the unfamiliar, so we always try to go back to the past, even though it's not a pleasant place to relieve our experience. So when we feel like we're at the point of like, I just want to go back to my so-called my old self, right? From that point, you have to make like a very conscious intention to bring yourself forward instead of backward into the past. Instead of falling back, you try to stumble forward into the you from maybe even a year later. And you be like, okay, if I am myself from a year from now, and I look back at this right moment,
You
do
wouldn't
I
be
want
doing
to?
that.
Yes, you wouldn't be doing that. And you'd be like, okay, maybe it's not that big of a deal that you think it actually is in the moment. Because sometimes we can be very overwhelmed with our emotions that we are not really thinking straight. But when we pull ourselves forward in front, somewhere ahead of us, and then we look back at the current moment in hindsight, in retrospect, it feels a little easier to navigate your current emotions. So instead of trying to fall back into your past, it's easier to actually stumble forward. Even though moving forward can feel like a stumble, but it's always better to be stumbling forward and fumbling and waddling or whatever it is than to fall back into the unfamiliar that is actually unpleasant and not something that you actually want to relive again.
That makes so much sense, Serene. Like when you're thinking about yourself in the future and how the future you is not going to be phased by whatever issues that you are going on presently or whatever issues that were going on in the past, because you kind of have that future identity to be like, okay, but that's not where you are anymore, or that's not who you are anymore. That's so potent. That is so potent. I love it.
Because if you think about it, like even like right now, and if you try to think back of the events that happened in your life and be like, why did I do that? Why didn't I do this? So when we are in the future, even the past that could have been like full of rage and anger, when we think back about it, be like, oh, like why? Why was I so mad? Why was I like that? And then a lot of times, even if it's a misfortune, like maybe you fell and broke your toe or something like that, in the future, you actually laugh at yourself. It's actually easier in the future to look back in hindsight. So whenever you feel like it's so overwhelming, just put yourself in the future. However far you can reach yourself in the future, just put yourself there and try to see your present self in a retrospect form.
That is so funny. That is so funny that you said you broke your toe, because I've actually broken my toe before. It's like my most recent injury. So you're definitely picking up on something there. And now, like, just putting a little pressure on it sometimes kind of like sprains it and makes it like get out of whack. But yes, I feel that so deeply. And that is such a good exercise. I thought that you were going to tell us to like ground ourselves with like affirmations or something, but like this exercise of going into the future and kind of seeing the situation from our future self's perspective is genius.
Thank you.
This is what I mean, guys. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
It's funny when you mention like instead of giving advice like grounding and affirmations and all, I find it really funny. Like I think that's why you always say you want to print out my words and stick it up on the wall, because I don't know, like the way I work with like mindsets and energy and all, I think I don't really do things like what the mainstream spiritual industry does, like all the journaling and meditation. Yeah, like I don't know, but I mean, they're all good. It really depends on what you need. But for myself, I don't really resonate with that. I just come back to a very practical form. Like, what does my body, in terms of my body, and not like, oh, what am I feeling kind of thing. It's like, I just come back to myself and be like, okay, what do I need right now? And I don't be like, okay, I should do this and do that and do this and do that. I'll just come into a very clear cut, like the shortest way, the shortcut that I can do, the fastest way I can get myself to move to a certain, like a mindset shift or something like that. I won't go the long way.
I feel like you're like really more visual. And to me, it feels like you kind of work with the subconscious a little bit, because this like, using your imagination and picturing your future self, that feels like subconscious work to me. So yeah, it makes sense why whenever I say that, oh, like, I just want to print out your words and like keep reiterating it to myself, you're like, oh, but you could just imagine your future self and see how little it affects you. Like it's not as big of a deal as you think. And we kind of talked about that before. We kind of talked about how when we're in a certain difficult situation, you get so in your head about it that it feels like the problem is bigger than your world. And you kind of talked about getting out of that perspective and reframing your perspective in order to see how small and insignificant it is. And remember how big the universe is. That was very, very potent, at least for me. I felt like that was such a good reframe.
Yes. The moment we magnify and focus on our challenges and our emotional turmoils, the world seems tiny. Everything goes tiny, and you become like the giant of it all. Like everything is about you. Like you're actually enhancing even the turmoil that is within you. The moment you zoom in on it and magnify on it. But when you close your eyes and come back to a space of imagining the world around you being big again and you being small again in this huge world, suddenly your problems doesn't feel that great. I mean, not your problem maybe, but your emotions, like the overwhelm of emotions will start to calm down. Because when you're allowing your external, like environment, to be bigger than your internal environment, then our focus will be on the magic that is around us, the beauty that is around us, and instead of focusing on the turmoil that is happening within us. But of course, like external, we still don't attach to it. Like I think we mentioned about like the Wheel of Fortune in the tarot. Like if we ground ourselves in the hub of the wheel, the center of the wheel, then because the wheel will definitely turn, you could going around and around. But if we attach our identity to our external environment, which is the outside of the wheel, you're in for a ride, because you've been going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And then it's like when you're up there, you'll be like, oh, wow, I'm like a superhuman. I can do every single thing.
I'm at the
Yes.
top of the world.
Yeah, you have a lot of I am, and all the good stuff behind it. But because you will come down again, you definitely go to the bottom of the wheel again.
Face plant in the dirt.
Yeah, and if you attach yourself there, you start saying like, oh, I am the worst person in the world. I am the most unfortunate, and da 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 da. It becomes all that I am, insert all the so-called the negative words. So, but if we center ourselves right in the middle, you'd be like, oh, when you're up there, you'd be like, oh, I am experiencing this, but I am not this. I'm just experiencing this phase where things are more smooth, and of course you celebrate it. Not to say that we don't celebrate our wins, but just be like, oh, I am. It's like putting yourself in the passenger consciousness, like from an observer's position, and be like, oh, I am experiencing this right now. It's all good, and I'll be celebrating all the milestones that I've achieved, or all the good things that happen to me, all the laughs and happiness, so that when you go to the bottom of the wheel, you'll be like, oh, I am still me. I'm still worthy. I am still me in a full sense. Just that I am now experiencing a more challenging phase. Mm-hmm. So, and then it's also easier from that space to draw on strength to like tell yourself like, okay, I'm just experiencing it. It's just a phase. I will be able to overcome it. I will have the resilience. I will have the capacity to actually overcome this challenge because I am just experiencing it. I'm just going through it, but I am not it. So it's very important to detach our identity from our external events and environment, and to just like your identity, it will always be your truest soul self, the essence within you, and never about the environment around you.
How does one do that? I feel like you need to have a lot of trust in who you are and really know yourself deeply in order to be able to ground yourself like that, in order to know that whatever's happening outside of you is not a reflection of who you are. How do you ground in that?
I would say that the most, like the first step would be the way you talk about yourself. Instead of using I am this, I'm I'm a mess or whatever, do not ever identify yourself. Do not ever identify yourself with a certain characteristics, right? Like we always try to, like I am is I am still me, but everything you're going through is an experience. So instead of saying, oh, I'm the most, like I'm the unluckiest person on earth, you'd be like, oh, I'm experiencing like unlucky events. So I would say that to add the word I'm experiencing, like experiencing, instead of I am this and that, would be like the first step. Would be the first step. And when you get used to it, eventually you will be able to train your brain to be like, oh, this is just an experience and not me.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm going to sit with that. I am experiencing bad luck, or I'm experiencing this and this situation, this and this trauma, instead of saying, I am this, I am unlucky, I am cursed, I am this and this and this.
Nope.
Wow. Okay, this reminds me of a Chinese proverb that if you guys don't know, I feel like it is so, so wise. I remember like a little bit of it. I had to look it up, and I'll kind of paraphrase it for you guys, but it's very on point with what we're talking about. I feel like it talks about a farmer whose horse runs away, and his neighbors come to him and they're like, oh, this is such bad luck. Your horse has ran away. And he's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. He doesn't say that it's bad luck. And then later the horses return. The horse that ran away returns with wild horses. And the neighbors are like, oh, this is such good luck. The farmer's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And then I think the next part of the story goes that his son falls off one of the horses, the wild horses, when he was trying to tame them, and breaks his leg. And the neighbors are like, oh my gosh, that's such bad luck. He broke his leg off falling off of a horse. And the farmer says, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And then the next day they come to draft him into the army, I think, the son.
Yep.
And they can't because his leg is broken.
Yep.
And the parable here is, I feel like this detachment, this kind of like role of playing the observer and doing what you said, not identifying and being like, I'm unlucky or I am lucky, and just, I'm experiencing this and this and this, instead of making it a part of yourself, making it a reflection of yourself, is so on point. It's so on point. I feel like you could have said that proverb better, because it sounds like you knew it, but I love it. It's absolutely.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like definitely. But of course, it's very hard. It's very, very hard, because our ego self, and I mean, when I say ego, I mean it in the terms of the awareness of self. Like our ego self will always want to attach ourselves to what's happening around us, so that we can, I always feel that our ego self wants to attach so that we can feel that we're alive, that we can feel that we're part of this world. Because if we don't attach ourselves to the environment around us, we might feel like we're not really present and we're not really here. So I believe that's why we want to attach, because it helps us to feel seen. It helps us to feel present in this life. But that's not really true, because no matter where your ego self pops itself, you will always be present in this life. As long as your soul is still here, your essence is still here, you'll always be present in this life.
Thank you, Serene. Thank you so much for that. I feel like there's so many downloads there and so many tidbits to kind of reflect on, as usual. That happens all the time when I talk to you. But if you guys wanted to book a session with the amazing Serene, you can find her on Instagram at withserene.clarity. She has a website in her bio, and she has very, very different ranging services that I would highly recommend, especially if you need clarity or need a perspective shift, because you are really good at perspective shifting. Like, just, I'm going to be telling you, oh, this is happening. Like, I can't get out of my head about it. And like with one sentence, it's like, boom, and it's flipped over. And I'm like, huh. I think you said something like, aren't you lucky to have this and this happen to you? Like to have, like, something was going on and you're like, aren't you blessed to be able to have this and this?
Like to have the awareness of something. I think you were like mentioning there's an experience that was causing you to struggle with your emotions a bit. And I'm like, oh, that's great. You actually have the awareness of the source of your struggles, and you know where it's coming from, so that you'll be able to set the boundaries up for it. It's helping you to reframe.
Yes. It was like, it flipped the script for me, and I was like, oh my God, I need to stop complaining. And you totally called me out. You totally called me out about the importance of how it is that you speak about yourself. Because I feel like we're all our biggest critics, especially, I see this in soul contracts all the time. The people that are super demanding of others, that are super like, oh, you need to be producing more work. It's because they're so hypercritical of themselves. They're so demanding of themselves. They expect that other people are holding themselves to that same standard. And they're like, oh, if I'm able to do this work, then so should you. You should be able to do it too. So it's such a good reframe, because I feel like women especially get so stuck in the self-criticizing and not doing enough, and the mom guilt and all of that.
Yes. It's a lot.
This is going to be very powerful a powerful way to reframe that and come back to yourself.
Yep.
So those are all really good tools, and I am so happy that we talked about that we kind of like let it flow and like see what comes up, because that feels very, very healing.
Thank you. Just following the messages that are coming in and allowing it to happen, because I believe that what comes in is because there's a need for it on the other end.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Serene, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, you can find her on Instagram, again, at withserene.clarity. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 13 of the Soul Ecosystem Podcast. You can tune in next Friday. Every Friday, there's a new episode coming out for episode 14. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely weekend, and thank you, Serene.
Thank you.